Hey there, welcome to First Contact Conventions. My name is Scott, and I wanted to talk to you today about Star Trek Enterprise. So obviously with the current global pandemic and everything that's been going on, we've had a lot of time on our hands. There's no conventions running, so I haven't really been working too much. And about a month or so ago, a couple of months ago I think, 6-8 weeks, who knows. It's all a blur, as I'm sure everyone's fully feels the same. We decided to rewatch Enterprise. And when I say rewatch, there's a lot of episodes there that I'm going to say I saw for the first time. So let me give you a bit of a history and backstory with me and Enterprise. Look, I'm a lifelong Star Trek fan. I was raised on Binge, motion picture. Love that movie. So, Kirk, Spock, McCoy, all those guys. Then I remember Next Gen came out, and I remember going to the video shop back when we had video stores, even before Blockbuster. This was, kids, and seeing Star Trek Next Generation on the shelf, right? But not knowing. I mean, we were still kids at this point. We didn't understand, seasons, hiatus, and all this sort of stuff that we do now about TV shows. So I remember hiring it, and I put in, and it was Encounter at Farpoint. I do remember that much because I remember the scene with the older McCoy walking around with Data. But I remember at the time going, "What is this? This isn't Star Trek. That's not Captain Kirk." Nah, didn't bother with it. But also being in Australia, it's not like it was aired on television that we could actually watch. So it wasn't until round about Unification, I think, came out, and that was again on the shelf at the video shop. And I remember I went, "Okay, that's Spock. I'll watch that." And I remember watching that and enjoyed it, and then obviously went back and hired other videos and episodes, and the mayhem that is my Trek fandom really took off. Especially come '95 Generations. I remember I ordered All Good Things from the US on video. Cost me $45 to get it through Minotaur, and they shipped it in, and that was fantastic. So watch Voyager, watch Deep Space Nine, all this, big Star Trek fan. New Trek coming, just called Enterprise. Kind of cool. I didn't mind that. It didn't turn me off, as it did a lot of fans at the time. And I remember I watched the first season, watched the second season, and much like even the other series, you watch Next Gen, you watch Voyager, you watch DS9. The first couple of seasons aren't the best, but you know what? It was pretty good. I didn't mind it. Then Season 3 happened. Now, for those that have watched, it helps if you've seen Enterprise or have an understanding. Season 3 was the Xindi story arc, where pretty much every episode, one big long story that all tied in together. And I think I just got bored with it. I'm like, didn't really fuss me, so I didn't watch it. I caught the odd double episode here and there in Season 4, which, if you remember, was primarily 2 and 3 parters all through the whole season. And then didn't really, and I remember seeing the finale at the time. I went, oh yeah, okay, that's all fine. But didn't really watch it, and it didn't really bother me that I hadn't seen it. And I had tried about a year or two ago. I thought, you know what, I should rewatch this. And I started watching Season 1 Enterprise. It just wasn't floating my boat, wasn't doing my thing. And I thought, oh, okay. And I just did, again, there was so much other stuff vying for our attention these days. It's hard for any show. I mean, you think about it, how any of our shows got renewed based on the current climate, where if it doesn't come out of the gates, bolting, it gets cancelled. Do I mention Firefly? And so anyway, so I didn't bother again. But then my wife said, with this lockdown, she goes, let's start watching Enterprise. It's like, yeah, okay. So we've sat and binged 4 seasons of Enterprise, which became Star Trek Enterprise, which I think was, from memory at the time, was more the ratings weren't doing it, and producers were like, okay, we need to get the fans back. We need to call it Star Trek so people know what it is. Which I can understand, same way we've got Star Trek Discovery rather than just Discovery and that sort of thing. So I've rewatched all 4 seasons in one hit. It's a very different show when you watch it in one hit like that, rather than just an episode here, one a week sort of thing. So Season 1 and 2, I didn't mind. It was Star Trek. It was fine. There were obviously they've got to develop the characters, so there's a bit of that. I mean, at the start, Hoshi was very whiny, very scaredy cat sort of. It's like, well, you're on, the I'm going to say Federation, but it wasn't at this point. The Starfleet flagship here. You shouldn't be that whiny and scared of even going to warp. But but they sort of developed her and they grew her. That was fine. Let me put another thing on this. So, obviously there was a lot of flack about having T'Pol on there. Vulcan, they're just replacing Spock, but they made him a female because of whatever. I watched a few episodes of original series because, whenever there's nothing else to watch, you put on original series because it's fantastic and you can just watch it whenever you want. Her performance is really good. Watch a few episodes of original series and then watch some early Enterprise. She's a very good Vulcan. I'm going to give it to her. Jolene did a fantastic job in that role. But it's funny, season 1 and 2, and then obviously developing Travis a little bit and Malcolm, and what I found, so season 1 and 2, because I'm going to split this up. Season 1 and 2 are very normal Star Trek sort of thing. You're episodic, away you go. Dr. Phlox is fantastic. John Billingsley did an amazing job, I think, as Dr. Phlox there. Some really great development in that character, and there's some scenes and some episodes where John really gets to show his acting chops, and I think he did a really good job, really dramatic, comedic, like a bit of everything for that character. It was really, really good, I think. But season 1 and 2, when you binge them, it's only when you watch them back to back like this that you notice it, that it's a very Trip-centric show. It is all about Connor and getting his gear off. Which, my wife didn't mind, so it was fine. We sat and watched Star Trek. But it was very much about Trip. Then we get, so we've got 2 seasons, normal Star Trek. As I said, you binge it, and you see there's a lot of Trip stuff throughout that. Then you get to season 3, the Xindi story arc, which was actually really good. I actually enjoyed it. Which I didn't think, I didn't enjoy it at the time, but this time around, I thought it was fantastic. It's very Archer-centric in this one. It's very much Scott Bakula's show at that point. Very dark, a much darker show. And the story arc, I guess, they give the captain there is you see him torture people, the threats, following through with threats. The episode towards the end of the season with Casey Biggs guest starring as another captain that's sort of on his way back, and they end up breaking into his ship and stealing his warp drive, basically. So he's stuck there on a 3-year trip now to get home. Now, it's something that you haven't seen a captain do before, where he's basically become a pirate within the Expanse. So it was a very much darker show, and then by the end of it, the Enterprise is blown up to buggery, and it's like, how the jinx are you going to rebuild that? And it's funny because as an organizer, as a convention organizer, knowing a lot of the actors and people behind the scenes, you start thinking about these guys and the job they had on a day-to-day basis, and you go, those poor set builders, did they have to pretty much destroy everything they'd built and then rebuild it all again and fix it all up and give everything a new coat of paint, new carpet for season 4? But no, season 3 I think actually works, especially when you binge it, which is what your Netflix and things are perfect for if you don't have the DVDs, or vice versa, just use the DVDs. But people these days I think are kind of almost lazy, where it's like, I've got the discs, but I'm not getting up and changing it. I'll just put it on Netflix. It's fine. Then you hit season 4. Now season 4 obviously was when we had a new showrunner come on board with Manny Koto, and it keeps some of the darker tones and darker elements, I think, of season 3, but goes back to more your episodic formula from season 1 and 2, but not single episodes. It's all 2 and 3 parters, but there are some standout moments. I mean, the Mirror Darkly sort of 2-parter towards the end of the season is just fantastic. It's not. Every other time we've encountered the Mirror Universe, it's been the crew going into the universe, or that universe coming into ours, as we've even seen in Discovery, where this is just a standalone 2 episodes of what's going on in the Mirror Universe, and it's fantastic. And Hoshi's very naughty in that one. And she becomes, and it's funny, spoilers, for those that haven't seen it, she wants Empress Hoshi Sato, which is kind of, okay, they were sort of going for that thing when you've got Emperor Giorgio as well from Discovery in that universe. So, was she laying the groundworks for Giorgio? Is she related to Hoshi? Who knows? And when you find out in season 4, I think that Hoshi has a black belt, so she can. But they didn't really. I guess this is stuff they were thinking of at the time, because it wasn't mentioned. As I said, she was a scaredy cat. But then you hit season 4, and Hoshi's really developed. So season 4 I thought was really good. Like I really enjoyed that too. Brent Spiner came back for a 3-parter with the Augments. sort of before he heads into, and because he's playing a descendant of Noonien Singh, who created Data, and so and it all ties in really well. It's really good. And season 4, you get the episode actually in that 3-parter with Brent. The Big Show, the wrestler, appears. He must be a big dude. There's a scene where he picks up Jolene, picks up T'Pol, and to show her off because they're selling her because he's an Orion slave trader, and he picks her up, and he looks as he does this and shows her around to the crowd, and the scale there of that's about how big he looks to holding her. Like, she's tiny and he's just the Big Show. I guess his name sort of suits. So overall, I don't know what my hesitation was at the time on Enterprise, where I don't know, I just wasn't having it. But I don't know, maybe it's because I'm older, a little bit wiser, hopefully a bit more grayer. But Enterprise is definitely worth the watch, something you should do. However, the series final. I don't know, I've got a lot of questions about it, and my questions are more about a behind-the-scenes approach to it. Why was the decision made to bring in Riker and Troy to make this a holodeck program that Riker was, because they very much showed that it was taken during which I think season 7 episode Pegasus, so he was struggling with what he needed to do against his old commanding officer. Does he go to Picard? Always go to Picard. He's a smart guy, he'll look after you, he's got your back, he's your friend. But we won't get into that. But why was it decided, did it take away the emphasis on the finale of that show and that cast, making it a B storyline for Next Gen? I don't know. Tell me what you think. They killed Trip off. Why would you do that? I don't know. I've got issues with that final episode. As I said, it's more about, I didn't like how it felt like it was taking away from what the crew and cast of Enterprise over 4 years battling against, I guess, it was almost an early incarnation of toxic fandom. They were battling against that, bringing in the new showrunner, rewrites, and getting in and trying to bring the show, I guess, what they see as back on track to being a Star Trek series. And so that there's been all this turmoil that they sort of went through, and they stuck together and they got through 4 seasons, and then to have the final episode as a Riker and Troy thing on a holodeck, and then to not have Archer deliver his speech at the formation of the Federation. I don't know. Like, I have a feeling, Picard had these amazing monologue speeches. Kirk had these amazing monologue speeches. Janeway had them. Sisko had them. Fantastic. The performances that these actors are able to bring to us, that you can almost, reduce you to tears, I guess. But then Archer, Scott Bakula, was denied that, especially in the final episode, which I think it was lacking and needed. And for the final episode, it's one episode, 42 minutes, where every other series got their big 2-parter movie length. Why wasn't it approached like that? So as I said, I've got a lot of questions. I'm going to have to, as an organizer, see what I can, and with the people I know and are friends with, I'll see if I can find some answers, dig around a little bit and see if I can uncover what the thought process behind that final episode of Enterprise was. But I think, look, overall, we've all been binging a lot of stuff over the last 6 months, as we're stuck at home with nothing else to do, with work a bit iffy here and there. But I think Enterprise is definitely worthy of your time, and definitely worthy of the Star Trek name. So please let me know in the comments below what you thought about Enterprise, what you think about that. I'm thinking we're going to have to start binging Voyager next, because I haven't seen that since I think it first came out. So I think that could be a good ride. We watched we watched Caretaker last night. God, they were young. Robbie was so young. But that will be another video in 7 seasons' time, the recap of Voyager. But for this one, recap of Enterprise. As I said, this is a lifelong Trek fan that has definitely now become a renewed Enterprise fan. And I think it's definitely worthy of all of you to go and check it out again. Go have another look. You might change your opinion. As I said, it's very different when you binge a show versus watching episode to episode. So anyway, thanks again, and until the next one, we'll see you then.